Welcome everyone to part 2 of the online event with Avi. Hi Avi, thank you so much for being here again with us today and to tell us the rest of your story, which is of course only a small part of your family story, but we are very interested to listen to it. And I hope that many of you also joined part 1 or watched it on our YouTube channel before, because Avi will step into the story and not repeat everything from part 1. But feel free to ask questions in the chat. My colleague Leah is there collecting the questions, which I will hand over to Avi later on after his presentation. So we will just collect them and then, feel free. And Avi, it's your the stage is yours again, and I'm very happy that we found the time again to go on with your presentation today.
Thanks, Isabel. I just will say something before I start the presentation, that in the first part I talked about my mother and her family in the darkest time on earth, and about the beginning of the Holocaust in the city of my father. And that's the part which I don't present now again. But I want to say about what I will talk now, and that will be about my father's journey, and less about the places, but more about events that he went through, and about the terrible times and happy times on German soil. There were also happy times there, the impact of that experience on their life, and the transpassing of it to us, the children, and how the Shoah experience shaped us and became a legacy, I would say, and the process that I went through till it turned to something positive, because it was very, very impactful, negative on me. And then I will talk very shortly about some pioneers, which I will say they are my heroes, as an example for learning from the Holocaust. So now I try to share. Sorry. You don't see it yet, no?
Not yet, no.
Yeah, okay. Now share. Sorry, Windows.
No problem. Take your time.
Okay, that's okay. Now
there it is. I will set the layout. Yes.
You see it on full screen. In full screen, do you?
Yes, we can see it in full screen now.
Okay. So what you see here, it's a map that I showed before. Also, that's Poland, and I will make it bigger. That was the city where my mother was. It's called Suchedniow, but now I concentrate on the other place. Not even on the place. It's called Olkusz. It's between Krakow and Katowice, or the Sosnowiec, and quite good situated between these cities, because at that time it was a main road between both of them. And I will talk about this person. This is my father. That's a picture that was taken 4 years later, after the story starts. So he was about 16 when he was taken from home. He was kidnapped in the street, in the ghetto, in the street, was just taken, so he couldn't say to anybody goodbye, and was taken from a place that called Olkusz, that what I told you, probably through Sosnowiec, to a small place that called Dolnau, or at the German place Niederkirchen, where a lot of Germans lived also at that time. What you see there, it's the autostrada, autobahn, how you say it in English? Autostrada. That's what they built, that's what they did. For that they were taken from home, and the company that worked in Niederkirch was called Karl Moses, or the Moser. And if you can't read it in German, but they built streets and bridges. And that was the whole piece of these streets and bridges. There are about 16 camps along this place from Wrocław till Katowice, and this place Dolnau in the middle. is a very small. And sometimes they finish their piece of street to build it and were taken to another camp. That's the place today. You can see just how far it is from what today is the autostrada, the highway. That's how it's called. Yeah, and that was exactly where the camps. I've been there. I mean, it's just an empty place today. Belonged to the Polish army. I don't know if today, but 20 years ago, it's belonged to the Polish army. And they had to go always through the fields to this place. And just want to mention that there were also possibilities for people who didn't want to be cruel to do that. They had a German person, who escorted them, a soldier. His name was Meyer. It's very difficult to find a Meyer just by the name. I mean, in Germany, I was looking after him for a long time. And he was letting them always eating something from the fields. And till somebody complained about him, some of the farmers complained about him. And one day they asked, where is Meyer? And Meyer was sent to the Russian front. That's what they built. And they build it with beton. That's what you see the rest of it. It's plates of beton, and you are carrying them with paper sacks. You know, the paper bags, big paper bags. If I go back again, it goes like that. That you have every time you have a piece that you build a piece, you pave the piece. It's not paved actually. And if anybody drove on Polish highway 20 years ago, he knows how it sounds. It's tuck, 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 tuck. That's how it goes. Now why I'm showing that? My father told me that in winter, they didn't have socks. So they used to take the paper from these bags and put them around their feet. Most of them had their civil clothing, but at some point the shoes were not anymore. They couldn't wear them, and they got some wood shoes. And as I said, they put this paper inside. And the problem is that when the paper was before with cement, it's become cement on the foot. And they didn't lose their legs because of that, but they had to break it. And you can imagine how painful, how difficult was life there from the beginning, just from the beginning. In this place, from Niederkirchen, he was taken to another place that called Markstedt. There they were working also on the highway. They were taken to the highway every time. I won't stay here. It looks like a greeting from a holiday place, which was also Markstedt, holiday place. For Germans, was a holiday place. From here, they were taken to a place that's called Ludwigsburg. And in this place, in Ludwigsburg, I will tell another story. The place where, again, looks like a holiday place, had something very, very terrible. It's called Project Riese, which to the lack of my father, he didn't have to work there. And in this Project Riese, that's what they were doing. Most people who work there didn't survive much. It didn't survive long. And my father had the luck, you can say, to work in the ammunition factory there. And that's how it looks like. It was before a normal factory. It became later an ammunition factory. And one day, my father was sent instead of to the ammunition shift. He was sent to the kitchen shift. And in the kitchen shift, you had to peel, not to peel, but you had to work with a lot of things. Among them, potatoes. And he tried, and sometimes they were checked out when they left the kitchen, and sometimes not. And he tried his luck, and he stole one potato and put it in his trousers, and they were checked out, and he was catched with that. And the punishment was he was put in the whole night standing between two electric fans that were just next to the gate. No way to that you can sit, and if you move, you will fall. You will be electrified. You will die. His hands were tied in the back, and to make it more terrible, they stick the potato that he was trying to steal in his mouth. So he was actually a whole night and like that, struggling with himself to put an end for it or not to put an end for it, because he could go on the electric wire, and that will be the end. But he did manage to make it, and he had a very a very strong willingness. From this place, Ludwigsburg, Ludwigsdorf, sorry, he was taken to Auschwitz, Auschwitz-Birkenau, to make it exact. This is a book, the chronicle of this place, Auschwitz, of Birkenau, which dated from all documents that they found, dated whatever they could get, because a lot of documents were destroyed towards the end of the war. And since my father got a number in Auschwitz on his left hand, I could find out, because I didn't know when he came to Auschwitz. And in the list that he prepared, he wrote that he was there 5 to 6 months. That was his memory. I found out that he was 3 months there, and I just will translate it from German. That's another thing here. With the transport from Ludwigsburg, where after the selection were taken 85 Jews with the number A17592. My father had the number A17593. Till this number, the rest of the prisoners, 370 men, were sent to the gas chambers. When I saw it, when I met it first, these documents, I was shivering. Of course, it was something like I'm there, I'm seeing that, or when I had to think about what my father had to feel about it. That was actually the first election and not the last election that he went through. I just show in these documents also that something that happened a lot of times also in Auschwitz, and a lot of people don't know. People escaped. People succeeded to escape. Here it's talking about a Polish Jew who succeeded, who was a communist, doesn't matter, but he succeeded to escape. And if you go through this very, very thick book, I think about 2,000 pages, 1,500 pages, and you read through, you see how much happened in this place. This is how Birkenau, that's the map of Birkenau. On my father was in what it's called here camp quarantine, but he didn't come. He first was taken there to the quarantine, was taken to something else. I will tell about it later. And in the end came back to the quarantine. What you see here up, the red ones, where I'm going with the mouse, with the hand, That's are the gas chambers, the main gas chambers, and here are another two. And here on the side where I'm showing, that's where the parents of my grandfather were taken to the first gas chamber. That's the photo that the Allies made in the end of 44. And that's another story that I found there. And I would want to show what a crazy place it was. Here it's talking about another transport from Blechhammer that brought prisoners. By the way, on this transport, Mengele is signed. So there are some people who claim that Mengele never made selections. Anyway, he signed on the document from that. They had a reason to bring them to this camp. Doesn't matter right now why. And that's what I want to show, how crazy it is. This person, Chaim Naiman, is a relative of my father. Is the husband of the aunt of my father. And look, when he was born, he was over 50 when he was taken there. And the reason that he survived, most probably, because he was a glassmaker. Anyway, he worked with glass and they needed people like that. So he survived. The next person, it's another relative of my father, of mine. He was born in 29. So he was 13. He was 13 when he was taken there. And he also survived with his brother. That was, by the way, his brother was a friend of Elie Wiesel, but that's another story. From Auschwitz, they were taken in around 1.5 days to Germany. It was October 1944. And at that time, of course, the Germans started to lose the war, and they started to move people towards Germany. And that I know from somebody who presented here also from Bernard Offen, how they made it. I just remember that my father told me, I asked him, it was a train. He said something, I didn't remember what. What was it? I was 12 or 13 when he told me the stories. But Bernard told me how it went. They were in trucks, were sitting each one between the legs of the other ones. 1.5 days. They didn't stop for 1 second. Maybe they stopped, but they couldn't get out. And they were sent there to Kaufering. This is the place from above. Was Kaufering 3. That's the registration card of my father. You can see everything actually is normal, what it says here. It says that he was taken from Olkusz here. The German name is Birkenau on 13th of April 42. And that is card that I had the opportunity and to see it also in Arlsen in the archive, which was made for him, which was made in the so-called Schreibstube. Later you see they write it nice. How did I met Bernard? Because I found his card also there, and I see it's the same day that they came. So they had to be in the same transport. That's a story by itself. How I got to them. I met him 2 months ago. He's very well. It's a 93 years young man and wonderful. Another person that was in the same truck and that I found it a month ago was this person. Maybe you heard his name. Viktor Frankl was on the same transport. Was taken also to Kaufering, and that's another story. Will come later what it means for me. What they did in Kaufering, if I said till there it was very, very horrible, that was the most horror that you can imagine. In this is all cement, beton. They had it's a kind of hangars for shelters for aircrafts. They try to build, and you can see just the size of it. That's again, you can see the comparison. You can see it could have 11 stores. That's how it looks again. And it said length of 240 meters, if I remember well. They planned 400 meters at the beginning. And in all of this beton, that I know personally from a captain of the marine, I visited there. It's used till today as a shelter in the time of the fear of atom war. It was one of the safest place to be. And in all of these walls, there are bodies. Because what's happened that it was very slippery, and if you work on this structure, and it was wet, it was with cement, and you fell in, nobody will get you out. Nobody could get you out. And if you just think about a swamp, you just get in. He told me, this Captain Odenius, that they even calculated how much biomass the beton can hold without being distracted through that. In this camp, there is another story with my father. In three places there were this kind of shelters for aircraft were built, and that's the one where my father worked. He said the hunger was terrible. It was so terrible that one day somebody offered him a rest of a cigarette for his supper. And my father took it. My father accepted this exchange. And I asked him, how come? I mean, I just didn't understand it. How come that you can do something like that? And his explanation was that when you eat your supper, if you call it supper, this piece of bread and a bit of soup, it doesn't change anything in your hunger. You are hungry as much as before. That's the main thing that escorted you from day to night to day. This hunger. And with the cigarette, when you really take it to your lungs for 1 second, you have a relief from this hunger. And that's why he made this exchange. One day, the Americans came closer and closer, and the Germans decided to evacuate the people. And that's what's called Death March. They were taking here, it's about 90 kilometers that they had to walk. You have to think in what stage they were. Sorry, I went one too far. That was a bit. Hello. Sorry, I thought that maybe I was kicked out again, and Isabel called me. Somebody just called me. Okay, Isabel, give me a sign. I'm still there.
Yes, everything's fine.
Everything fine. Okay.
I can hear you and I can see your screen.
Okay. Thanks. Okay. And this, my father, if I go back to the other, there were 3 camps. He was moved from Kaufering 3 to Landsberg 1 to build the other place that's called Diana 2. They gave it nice names, not at all suspicious. The one was Walnuss. It's a nut number 2. Weingut. It's an grapeyard number 2, and Diana number 2. Anyway, he had to move from one to the other one. It wasn't much, by the way. At that time was I forgot his. Doesn't matter. He was taken to this with other people, of course. What I wanted to say, Viktor Frankl was taken at that time to Turkheim, to this place, and that's where my mother was, in this place, but nothing to do with that now. They were starting this march. That's what we have been seen when the Americans came to Landsberg. It was mostly empty. Most people were taken to this march. That's another place. That's Kaufering 5, and you will see in this kind of huts they had to live. It was burned down by the Nazis. That's somebody who was left there because they didn't succeed to get from all places the people. Just see what kind of a desolated situation they are there. And that's the march by itself. It was taken illegally from some people from their windows. They just went along the street, along forest, the whole way. That's again, you can see always there is a forest on the back towards there. That's the several different marches that the Germans tried to get the people to move on. And for me, it's very sorry. I will go back. You see here in a forest, and that's maybe the biggest story for me with my father. My father was very, very skinny. Everybody who was in the end of the convoy, if he couldn't make it up, was shot down. Just like that. And my father knew that he can't make it. He just knew that he won't survive it, that he won't make another day. And he took a chance with a friend, somebody he knew, in the night, and they escaped to the forest. Most of the time they slept just on the road. And it was discovered by the guards, and they chased them with dogs. It was night. My father fell. Of course, they couldn't see anything. He fell in a hole, and the other one was shot down. The dogs got him. The other one, he was shot down. My father lost his conscience, and he was found the day after by a dog of a farmer. And this farmer picked him and put him in the cow shed, where all the straw was there. And when the Americans came, presented them, gave them to the Americans. I asked my father if he kept any contact with this person, and his answer was he didn't do it because he liked me or anything. It was just an opportunity to show that he wasn't a Nazi. So that was his story in that case. This person, Otto Forschner, was responsible for this death march. One of the seldom cases that these people were tried and also sentenced to death. That's what happened with him in 1946. That's what is today there as a memorial, and you can see it on the road in several places where the people were taken. And I'm showing this photo not to shock, I mean, one should be shocked, but anyway, these people are adults. It's not very, and they don't look like that. And now I come to the point which is for me very, it's almost unbelievable. My father told me that his weight was 25 kilos when the American freed him, when he got to the Americans. And now I thought all the years it can be. I have a mistake. I just don't remember. Just don't remember well. It was probably 35, which is also unimaginable. But with 35 people, 35, there were many people who survived the Holocaust. And then I met people. I met survivors. And the one was 26 kilo. The other one, again, 26 kilo. The brother of Bernard Offensen talked about 65 pounds, which is 27, 28 kilos. So as much as it's unmanageable, one have to think these people are, in my eyes, are heroes. That they for not giving up, just for not giving up. This will to survive, so strong. This is the registration card that was made later by the Americans after the freeing of my father, after the release of my father. And here I want to show something for me, very important. Okay, the language that they used here, it's a bit. It says move from home to lager, move from home to the camp to the. Anyway, what I jumped directly, moved to Auschwitz, Poland, remained there 5 months. As I told you, that's what my father remembered. And it says sick, in hospital. Now, I don't know if any of you heard about hospital in Auschwitz, in Birkenau. Yeah, there was the quarantine that most people there were 2 weeks to see that they are not sick, because they didn't want to infect the whole camp there, but remained in hospital. Many years later, I found the documents that my father was exchanging with the German government. And I found that he was subject of experiments there. And now it makes me sense that after that, it's made me sense, because he told me that he saw Mengele. And as I said, researchers say that Mengele was never making selection. Well, apparently he did other things. And the one thing that I didn't say before, that I didn't tell before, when he was in Birkenau, to get to this convoy, where Bernard Offen was also there, there was a selection before. And also at that time, my father had some kind of sense, a sixth sense to know what's coming on. And he knew that he's too weak. And he knew that he will be selected. That was his feeling. And he took the chance, as in other times that he took the chance. And there was some kind of screaming of people who were sent to something, and he just skipped the line and went behind the door, or behind something. I don't understand. I think it was behind the door, if I remember well. And they registered at that time, or if you have does a selection, you register just those who are selected to send to the gas. The other ones are then free to go back to place. And he hoped that nobody will catch him, but nobody will see it. Somebody did saw it. It was the couple, which was a political prisoners. For some reason, which I don't know, there are many things that you just don't understand, because really it was a place that anything could happen, anything. Saw him, and after the selection came to him and brought him to this convoy that goes to Kaufering, that goes to Germany. So in that case, it was also a German. It was a German couple. And in between, I had to start it with it. A friend of mine told me, I just break because I'm talking about Germans. Yeah, I'm not saying Nazis, I'm saying Germans. And a friend of mine told me after she watched the presentation, the last presentation, and she told me, it's something very, very unpleasant. There are these very, very nice ladies who are sitting there, and you're talking always about the Germans, and they are sitting. There are Germans there. There are Germans, and I want to make the distinction very, very clear. Of course, Isabel and Charlotte, that was last time, are Germans. My wife was also German, so that's not the point at all. These people which try to make themselves only, or which the state of Germany later on, and I will come to that, try to make them only Nazis and not Germans. It's a miswriting the history, because there were Germans, they were educated as Germans, they grew up as Germans, they were first Germans and later became Nazis. And not all of them, not all who participate were indeed Nazis, but and still they participated. But I will come to that later. From Bad Tölz, I want to go back to this document here. I talked about 25 kilos. Then it says it moved to Dachau, that was Kaufering, liberated by American in Dachau, it's a mistake, traveled to Bad Tölz, that was actually the death march, and remained in Munich 1 month, then to Feldafing. He didn't remain in Munich 1 month. He was in a hospital indeed for 1 month, because he had because with this weight that he had, he could die every second, and so they had to repair him, I would say. I purposely I didn't take. I have photos from people like that. Purposely I didn't take it. Purposely I don't want to show a photo like that. He was then taken from Bad Tölz to Feldafing, which was a DP camp, displaced person camp. And there were many, that's only Bavaria. There were many of them. Don't remember how many. I think 36 DP camps there were there. And he was first of all in Feldafing. And that's how it looks like. I won't stay here. He didn't stay long there. Stay some months, but you can see here people start. They are again civilians. They are not these inmates that were hardly living or breathing. You can see people smiling. You can see people starting to get happy. That's the map of Feldafing. Doesn't matter right now. From there, he was transported. There, he met my mother. That's the first. Of course, at that time, they didn't know what will come, but there he met in Feldafing, he met my mother, and they were moved to Wolfratshausen, just around the lake on the other side, to a place that called a city called Wolfratshausen, and the place called Fehrenwald. And he says it's a state camp for DPs, for displaced persons, how you say, Ausländer, foreign displaced persons, Fehrenwald. And that's how it became to a Jewish, one of the biggest one, Camp Fehrenwald, Jewish displaced. And I will show some photos with not much commenting about it. Sorry, before I go to the photos. My father was born in 1925. You can see here that's the registration in Feldafing. He had no reason to say something else. If you remember, my mother in the last presentation made herself 4 years older. That's how she survived. Here he gave his real birth date. And suddenly, when he's in Feldafing, in Fehrenwald, he's 3 years younger. And one could ask himself, why? Because he was if you were a child, if you consider as a child, there are two things. They couldn't send you back to your homeland. That means to Poland. Anyway, that were what they were afraid of. They didn't do it in the end. It was voluntarily. If you wanted to go back to Poland, you could. But as a child, you had also other benefits that people that they were just there. So my father was witty and made himself younger, and he started to study Hebrew. But what's most interesting for me, that's another story. He spoke fluently Yiddish, Polish, and German. I didn't know it as a child. I knew that they speak Yiddish. I knew that they spoke Polish. My parents, by the way, spoke always among themselves Yiddish, with us always Hebrew, and only when they were quarreling with each other or spoke or cursing maybe even were speaking Polish. Hebrew, German, I didn't know till a friend of mine, Dieter Rusche, came one day to a visit, and suddenly he was a German person my father starts with joyful with him to talk with him German. And it was a shock, a positive shock, actually. I'm going to the next one. That was the card of my mother. I won't stay here. There is no reason to stay here. That was her registration. That were her parents. That shows that when they came at the beginning of 46, they came to Fehrenwald. And here I have even the address where they lived there. Actually, my father. I don't know if they lived at that time together. Probably not. And all the streets there were called after American cities. And he was living in New Jersey street. And we had New York, Illinois, Indiana. And I want to show a bit life there. That's a normal. That's how it looks like. Of course, black, white. And you have there what they call German, the German office. You have a school. You have that's the entrance of the camp. That's the cinema, and that's the hospital. So you have like a city life, and that's, you can see, people start to have children. And also culture. That's in Hebrew. It says here it's Tarbut. It's culture, actually. Culture, the culture school in Fehrenwald. And also, that's just a group of people that started to live again. And if I'm correct, my mother told me that there was one couple who was taking care of all the children. His Cohen was their name. I didn't find it in pictures that I looked, but it could be that there are these two. There were people who were taking responsibility to each other. You can see people smiling, you can see people happy. And also here you can see people happy. That is 1948. I will go back to other, and here in the middle, this is my mother. This person here. This is my mother. Looks very serious. She was also serious. And here in this picture is my, sorry, I will go back to the other. That was a tailor course that she took. That's the benefits of the children. You could join something and you are taken care that you get a profession and so on. That's a pictures of a group of people. Doesn't look like that, but this is the police of the camp. And my father could, I don't know how, because he was actually registered as very young, he could also get in. That's this person here. This is my father. And that's again my mother here in the middle. And that's this tailor workshop that they learn how to do it. Again, her, you're on the right side. And again, her. And that's, again, this police of the MP, military police, or not military, but the camp police. And this serious person is my father. This is 1946. And again, he's there, I think, try to look tough. And that's, again, he not trying so much to look tough. And that's the visit in there of Eisenhower, which again in Bergen-Belsen, 1946. Again, that was a happy day there. And as you can see now, my mother started to have friends and start to live again. That's my mother in the middle. And again, starting enjoying life. Even going traveling. That's in a resort in Bavaria. And having many friends, also guys, friends. I guess from her structure yet now it's quite in the end, direction of 48. And my father also enjoyed life. And here try to make himself really okay. So I don't have to comment it. Just love this picture. And here with the police and what that was, he had two hobbies, I think, there. He never talked about it, but that was bicycle. Again, bicycle and friends and horse riding. And then they met each other. And maybe these two are the friends who were the witnesses in their wedding. I don't know, but they got closer and closer. And closer and closer. And closer and closer about this dog my mother told me, which was very, very difficult. She had a really big fear from dogs, but this one was probably a very cute one. And they got married. There in the camp in Bergen-Belsen, their registration is also in the city of Wolfratshausen. Here it says Mazel Tov. And that's the registration card of my mother. And that's the registration card of my father. And as you can see, he's still very skinny. Of course, not anymore 25 kilos, but very skinny. And now I can see from that, on 26th of August 48, they are leaving. They are leaving Bergen-Belsen and they're going to Palestine or Israel. Israel was just founded. And they go on this ship, boat, actually. My mother told me that it was like a nutshell. It's from wood, always the fear that it's sinking. And that's how it looks on it. And they come to Israel and they create a family. And this baby is me. And this one is my father and my brother, my older brother. And I guess all people have some photos like that from the 50s. It's also enjoying that I'm showing that. That's again myself. I don't have a beard yet. And that's later. And that's come the story. That's my brother, my older brother. I'm older. And my brother went when he was 14. I will tell later why. When he was 14, he left home and he went to military school. And that means that he's there the whole week. And that was a Marine military school. And meanwhile, my younger brother was born. And I had my bar mitzvah when I was 13. That's my lovely brother. And then in the end, he was changing he was an officer in the infantry, and that's me growing with my mother. That's when he became an officer, the place. And you can see I start to look a bit differently. And now I start another story. And it goes like that. I'm showing this number. It's not far from the number that my father had. I go back to our childhood. In the childhood, as I told already in the first presentation, I will repeat it because if somebody didn't see it, it's a crucial thing that I have to tell. That's a symbolic picture for me. This person, but indeed was the document that this person got this number, was selected, was signed also by Joseph Mengele. At home, I saw the number of my father always. I mean, that's what I knew that he has a number. I didn't know what it is. At some time, he told me that it's just for not getting lost when I asked. That's when my mother refused that I will go to kindergarten. In Israel, when you are 4, you can go already to kindergarten, and my mother refused that I will do it, and she told me I will leave the story. That's not the point. This photo was in the bedroom of my parents, and this also. These two persons, this is my grandfather, the father of my father, and this woman is the mother of my mother. This photo I told in the other presentation was taken from a photo from relatives that came to Israel earlier, and this photo, this one, which you will see now, the original, without a kippah, without something on the head, without his cap, was taken from that. This is a newspaper that sometimes in the 50s was published. And this woman, Hannah Kolatach, that came also from Olkusz, was neighbor of my father. She knew my father, and she knew, of course, my grandfather, and she found it in the newspaper and brought it to my father. This person is her husband, and he was my teacher later on for the bar mitzvah. So from him I learned a lot. This photo was also in this book that is the memory book for the community of Olkusz. And that's how it looks there, of course, with the prints of those days, not very clear. And I grew up with this. I told already before in the last presentation, what was for our parents some kind of a mausoleum, some kind of a memory for them. For us was a very, very depressive atmosphere. That's what we felt the whole time. I will come to that also. one day, I'm jumping many years, and I will go back later. I made a photo from the original photo from the newspaper, and I went to Yad Vashem many years later, sometimes in the 90s. And I started to search for it, for the original, because I presumed that they have it. I didn't find it. I just didn't find it, and the reason is because it was in the wrong box. Here it says in Hebrew Bendin, and they didn't know where this photo was taken, and that's you can see in the former presentation exactly where it was taken, but it was written Bendin. When I didn't find in Olkusz, I started to look in Bendin, not because of this photo, because my grandfather comes from Bendin, and I found this photo. And I immediately wrote in Hebrew, that's the beard of the shochet, that my father was a religious ritual shochet, and is a ritual butcher that any Jewish community have to have. And he was also a dayan. Anyway, I wrote straight away that nobody can put it somewhere else. I wrote in the city of Olkusz that his beard was cut off in the city of Olkusz, and that was the original photo as I found it. And I asked them to make for me a replacement, a copy of it, and they did it for me. And they did it like that. You don't see anything from the background. And that was later on a big problem, because when I came, that will come later, I came to Olkusz and started to look for the place. And a very good friend there that was knowing the whole stories there, tried to find it, but couldn't find anything because you don't have the background. It's very difficult. But then I got the original again, and then I know exactly the spot where it was. For those who were not in the last, just will say it in 1 minute. He was forced. All of these people were not in 1942. In the end of 1942, were not anymore alive. All of them were taken to Auschwitz-Birkenau in the first gas chamber and died. My father took this photo or the photo from the newspaper to a photographer and put the kippah, the kepi, on the head of my father as he knew him all life back, and by that gave him back his respect. And that were the two photos that were escorting us day and night. That is the uncle of my father. I just mentioned it. He was the also one survivor. The reason that he was much older, and his name is Yohanan. He was the uncle of my father. But you have to understand, we didn't have any family, so I didn't know what is uncle. I just didn't know what this means. We called him all, because my father called him Uncle Yohanan. We called him all Uncle Yohanan. We just didn't understand what it means. We didn't have grandparents. We didn't have any siblings, anything that help us to orientate it. And the whole neighborhood where I grew up were people who survived the Holocaust. And you didn't see old people. You just didn't see old people. I grew up a bit in that time where I told last time that my father was telling me the stories when I was about 12. He was telling me every time a story, only from the concentration camps, nothing from the city, or hardly from the city, because every time where he grew up, hardly about the family, because every time when he started telling me, he started crying. And I couldn't, and I didn't ask him anymore. But I grew up, I don't know, I was 13, 14, and this person influenced my life also. His name is Tuvia Friedman, and he created what was at that time called the Documentation Center in Haifa. And I saw him once or twice, I don't remember, twice I think, in our school. And this person refused to forget. He couldn't forget. He came to our school, and he was so much power about it that he really impressed me. Really impressed me. 10 years later, I came to his office because I wanted to work there. I didn't get a work. I explained immediately why. He's one of the people who assisted to get Eichmann. He was trying to chase Mengele in many ways. That was the book that he wrote. He wrote several ones. And actually, I will tell you why it says here Nazi hunter. I came about 10 years later to his office and I asked if I could help. And they told me, of course, you could help. Of course, we are very happy if we have volunteers. Can you read German? And I said, no, I have no idea. I don't know German at all. I need to help. I can go where you can send me and I can get these people. It was a young 20s person with these thoughts. They told me it's very nice of you. We are very happy that people are care. We need people who can read German documents. That's what we need, because that's the way we chase them. We try to get them to trial. That's a book, not from him. That's a book that in Hebrew named Adam Mechapes Mashmaut, the introduction for logotherapy. That's how it's called in English. Viktor Frankl, the same Viktor Frankl that was with my father in this convoy. And I will tell you this book, this person before, Tuvia Friedman, on this book actually paved my life. I'm a psychotherapist in profession. I learned it later, and his logotherapy is a wonderful system. That's not the point. It's influenced me. I think I was 16 or 17. I don't know when I read it in German. It's called Trotzdem Ja zum Leben. Trotzdem Ja zu Leben sagen. A psychologist survived the Holocaust, survived the camp, and the idea that the meaning is so important, so paved my life actually later on totally, in good and in bad way and in good way. But I will tell you immediately. This is Viktor Frankl when he was young. That was before the Holocaust. And this is my young father. It's I don't know which age, still young. I loved him very much. And that's my father in his 50s, deteriorated. He had several heart attacks. Sorry. He had several heart attacks. That's my younger brother, Amos. And he died when he was 58. And that's his grave. And what we did, his parents didn't have a grave. His sister, he had also 3 young sisters. So what we did is that on the tombstone, the bottom part, we made a memory for his parents and his sister. And that's When my mother died, we did the same with hers. That's another memorial in the same cemetery for all people who perished, for all Holocaust victims who perished there. Now this person, you can recognize, he have already a beard, became quite wild, and started his own life. I traveled a lot. I traveled many years. I was in Europe. I see the time goes on. I will jump about some stories. What happened there? It was my first confrontation was in Germany was very, very difficult. It was with a policeman on the border, which checked my bag. Not because I looked like a hippie or maybe a drug user or something like that, because he saw that I have an Israeli passport. And at that time, I was very, I didn't have fear from anybody, just didn't have fear. And I was starting screaming at him that the other policeman, the younger policeman, stopped the car on the border and asked him if they can take me with. And that was Dieter, that was picking me up, that later on came to Israel to visit and spoke with my father, German, that my father so enjoyed. For my mother, it wasn't enjoyable at all to hear German, but it's another story. This is many, many years later. This is in India. And I told you before that my father was 25 kilos. I'm here 56 kilo, which is actually double, more than double. And still you can see I'm quite skinny. In my traveling, I met a woman in Australia. She was German. And the fact that she was German didn't change for me anything, because I don't judge people by their origin. It didn't make for me anything. Of course, I didn't know that I will spend my life later on with her here. But when I met her, we were found with each other, and we kept traveling. We were traveling together 2 years. I came back to Israel. I just will say it in one sentence. I refused to. I was before there. I took part in the war in Lebanon, and later on, some years later, I refused to make my military my reserve the reserve service there. In Israel, you have to make every year as a young person. Every year you have to make. And I was tried, and I had, from my looking at it, I had to leave Israel. I had the choice, sitting in jail or living out. And I left to Germany. I left to Germany because this woman, Zuzka, was my girlfriend, and I stayed here much longer than I ever planned or thought, and that it's all possible for me. And I spent a lot of times in the library. This is the German title. I read at that time the English title, and it's called Cold Amnesty from Jörg Friedrich. And it's describing how actually the German Republic did everything to prevent from punishing the old Nazis. Now I say Nazis, not all Germans, but all the criminals. They did. I can talk about it 2 hours by itself. I just leave it like that. They did everything to prevent that people were taken to court. And I just will put it in some numbers, that from 100,000 later on, there were a place that called Ludwigsdorf, which hands all of the files to deal with it. And from about 100,000 inquirements, 10,000 were started some kind of the way to get to a process to be prosecuted. 1,000 were prosecuted, from that, and most of them got the punishment that's called Ehrenverlust. They lost their honor for 3 years, so they couldn't become the mayor or something like that for 2 years. Another person that wrote about it, he writes that Ralph Giuliano is a Jew who lived in Berlin, and he wrote a book that's called the second guilt. And it's about this topic, about how the society in Germany actually washed herself away from the responsibility. I'm taking many years in few photos now. This person, Martin Walser, actually awakened up in me something that became terrible for me. I'm telling about life in Germany for me. At this point, he got a prize, a peace prize, and gave a lecture in a church in Frankfurt. And there he was talking about, totally unexpected to anybody. He was a leftist, let's say a very moderate writer. Nothing that make him suspicious to anything that's going to direction of right wing. Anyway, he was making a lecture and brought a sentence there that he is fed up from the Holocaust stick that the Jews are using, and I don't know any Jew who are not so deeply offended, really offended. And I was not only I was furious. And after what I said before, Nazis, criminals were not tried, nothing happened to them. And that's something that escorted me a very long time, and escorted me in dreams. And I can tell you, when I met later on a psychiatrist, a friend of mine, she told me that dreams were an excellent way to solve this, because I was dreaming that I have an atom bomb, and I'm trying to force the German government to hang all of these people who were Nazis, because they had all the documents for that. Otherwise, I will use this bomb. Of course, I didn't have any atom bomb, for sure not. But when I met this speech of this person, and I exploded about it, I thought I have to do something. I just can't take it. I just can't bear it. And at that time, there was not a Jew, a woman from Luxembourg who tried to get in court the firm Siemens. They tried to get to, because she was she worked for them. She worked for Siemens and wanted compensation for her work. Siemens refused, claimed that actually they paid everything already back through different funds and so on. And I thought I just can't keep up with that. And I started, and I made a plan, and it's the first before already I started to collect names of Nazis, but now I made really a concrete plan, and I said, okay, if Siemens don't pay like that, I will pay it in different way. And I started to make a plan how I force a warehouse to take out all Siemens product out. So they have some kind of a loss, of a monetary loss. And it came to the point that I really planned it very exact. My saving from this crazy plan because I really thought putting there, not putting a bomb and let it explode, putting a bomb and calling the warehouse and telling, look, there is a bomb there. It's better you leave these products out. And in that way, I thought I will create a damage. That was the time which I don't know how to describe it. I was eating myself. I was very aggressive, and because I couldn't be aggressive to the outside, I was very aggressive to my side, to inside, and all of that was because of this non-justice that took place there. The one who saved me from this situation actually was my wife, because she refused. I need somebody that called to this where I didn't get to putting the bomb, but to somebody who was calling to this warehouse and helping me, because they will, with my accent, with my German, the police, of course, is very, very wise. They will find me very, very, very quick. And my wife, absolutely refused to take part in something like that, and made me clear how crazy I am. And at some point, I realized it. This person, that was the beginning with this. This is some years later. I will talk about another 15 minutes, okay? Is it okay?
Takes a second for me to turn the microphone on again. That's why I'm not.
So okay, but I will talk. I will talk about something maximum 15 minutes, and that's it.
Okay, perfectly fine. And then we can go to the questions. Thank you so much.
That's actually the last person which I could kill. I didn't do it. I knew where he lives. I knew it. And that was actually I knew that I'm freed from this situation. I will show you immediately how I came to that. I just will tell the story. His name is Friedrich Engel. Friedrich Engel means in English the peaceful angel. That is really name. Is really his name. He was the SS in charge in Genoa, and he at some point in Italy, he brought to that a whole village was executed as a retaliation for partisan work, for partisan actions. It's nothing to do with Jews. That's the point. I want to say I didn't look for revenge. I looked for justice. I wanted that it will be justice, and not. I didn't look for the people who did something to my parents. Of course, I spent a lot of times in the archive in Ludwigsdorf and in Ludwigsburg, and search also for names that I knew and so on. I collected material. Because at that time I thought, okay, if they don't do it, I will do it. I will go and I will get them out. What I thought with 23, when I was by Tuvia Friedman in his office, said, okay, I will make it. I will get their addresses. I will shorten their life. I never did it. I'm very happy to. I don't know if it's correct that I didn't do it. And I will explain also why immediately. This person, who looks very, very cruel, was also very cruel. Was tried in Italy to death. Germany, but didn't. Germany don't give away German citizens. The claim from the Staatsanwaltschaft, from the juristical part, was that they don't know where he is. They didn't find him. Journalists found him in the telephone book, and that's how it got it all to a trial. He was found guilty. In the first, of course, he was already over 90, so there wouldn't be punished anyway. But he was found guilty. He went to the highest court and to a revision, and was freed. And the argument of the highest court was that this person was under such a pressure. It's called putantive situation. I don't know how it's a Latin word. He was under such a pressure that he actually was not responsible anymore to his deeds. That's the way that I'm talking about the year 2002. And that's the year, that's still a year where people that were before in this system of the Nazi were still in system there. That they took care that they will, then that there won't be punishment. I knew where he lives. I could get him. Was no problem. But there was no reason for me anymore to do it. Sorry, before I do, I want to just to the attitude of Germany as a state. This is a letter from my mother. After my father died, she didn't know that she should get his pension. She should get it. She should get it further. Anyway, she wrote many years later. She called them and asked what about this pension, actually, because a friend of her told her that she could have it, and so on. And that's the answer. And the answer is very simple, very correct, in very polite. But it says, well, first of all, you have to prove that the death of the person have a connection to the suffering in the concentration camps. That's a follow up of that. That's why he died, because there he was under that and that. And the second thing it says, we are very sorry to tell you that even if it would be so, you had only 1 year after his death to apply. You didn't apply. Okay, you lost it. Bad luck. Just we want you to know that what's called wounded pension in Germany for people who served in the Wehrmacht never updated. You can always you can claim it 50 years later if you start to have problems. Now I'm jumping a period. It's around the year 2003, 2004. This good person, David Boadella. I told you I'm a psychotherapist. I have to thank him a lot to this place, that's this institute. It's called Biosynthesis. I registered. I knew that I need some kind of a therapy. I went to a therapy, which helped me. But I knew that I want to come back to my old profession. I did learn it already when in my 20s. Was body psychotherapy, and this man David I met in Israel in 1982. He came for 1 weekend and he impressed me, and so 20 years later, more than 20 years later, I came to his school. It was in Switzerland, and I won't tell about the details that what was there, but he brought to that I could deal with this topic in a way that is not anymore destructive, because it was destructive, and it was mostly destructive for me, because, as I said, I had an aggression that went in towards me and not towards other, because I'm very, very friendly, peaceful person. Actually, I'm a nice person. I don't want to do harm anybody. And he in the institute, his wife in other ways helped me very, very much to get over. And I can tell you that this feeling that I have to take care that justice is in the world. I succeeded after the few years that I've been there to give back to God. I gave responsibility back. It wasn't my responsibility for justice in the world. Doesn't mean that I shouldn't do anything. Of course, we should do. Of course. But For the past, I'm not responsible. I can't bear it. I can't take it. I can't carry that. And he made it to me very, very clear. He brought me to that. I go to another period. It was a bit before. It was 1997. I'm jumping now to the last chapter, actually, and I will do it in 5 minutes. In 1997, I went first time to Poland. I drove. My wife convinced me to drive to go there. She saw what's happened to me. She understood very, very, very deeply how this topic doesn't leave me and will never leave me. And I went to Poland, and one of the nice persons that I met, I don't remember, it's 25 years ago, I think her name was Paulina. I don't find anymore the paper that I wrote it. That's in front, on the side of the house of my mother. And that was my friend's first confrontation with Poland, which had two sides. This nice person who brought me to the house, and the person in the house, when I asked she asked very polite if I could look in to the house, because that's where my mother, I was really yelled out. And I was quite shocked. Still, I made all photos. I went in the yard and I made all photos. And I told you, I'm not afraid from anybody. I made photos and everything, but I couldn't get into the house. Many years later, I could get to the house. That's another story. I showed here. That's the nice part of Poland. There was also a not nice part of Poland, and that's where you see. That's in Olkusz, the cemetery. And that's a house that I saw it much later, but it just I make a short slideshow to that. And from that, this house is built up from tombstones, Jewish tombstones. And even the toilet is from Jewish tombstones. And of course, it's very offending. And friends of me from there, when I showed them, they were also shocked. They just didn't understand how come. Most people are religious there. You don't do things like that. It was very obvious for them that you don't, and still people do it. This house doesn't. The granddaughter of the person that this house was belonged to demolished it or gave the allowedness to demolish it, and now they're again placed as gravestones. I told you, I met also very, very good people. These are three of them. This is Irek, Dorota, his wife, and Darius, Darek. And there were people who started in the 80s to clean up Jewish graveyards. And yeah, they were also younger at that time, and they did it. They did. They got one is archaeologist. He could get a permission to do it, and he also made several books about the tombstone, about the different places with the tombstones. So we have a documentation today, because from year to year it deteriorates and get destroyed. And Irek, this person here, this one, started, I don't know how many years, I think 2006 he started that. I'm not sure now. Started this march, you can say march for the death. It's called in Polish pamięci. It's a memorial march. Every time, every year when in the date where the community of Olkusz were sent to Birkenau, it took 5 days, but there is one day, the 13th, which was the main. The main was the day was most people were sent up. He started this march. He started by himself. Now there are here 30, 40 people. I don't know in which year it was taken. More people going with, and you can see the effect of that. They started to make it obvious, or to make the awareness of citizens that where they lived, there were also Jews before. There were also people. Just to make it clear, there are 40 to 50% of the community, of the inhabitants, were Jews. So they started to hang this kind. These are the list of the Jews. Among them, my grandparents and other relatives. These are the list of the Jews, and you can see old people, elder people. There were children at that time, and you also that, which are looking at that. So the awareness started to come in, because I'm telling you, the Holocaust was just was not a topic in Poland till I don't know, 15 years, or in some places till today. He brought to that also that this, like after a long struggle, that there was also a plague was made in on the place where they are gathered. In a few minutes I'm finished. Don't worry. These are, all of these people are actives in this. You will see them all. This is Krzysztof, that's Holgert. I was invited from time to time. I couldn't tell much because, as I told you, my father didn't tell me much about Olkusz. They wanted to know about Olkusz, but again, that's Eric and I doing a lecture that was there. Also, the language was a problem because I speak only English and not Polish, and that I was invited to the first. What I want to say, this slowly doing this march, doing that, making the awareness brought to that in 2017, the city itself, the city hall, decided to make a commemoration. And since that, every year there is a commemoration. And that's where I'm in one of these, I'm talking in one of them. And these are, these people are for me heroes. This is Olgert, Darek, Irek, and Krzysztof. They got a prize for their deeds. In some places, they are recognized for what they do, and that's very important. And that's, I'm telling about it because I want to encourage, and because I'm very grateful and thankful to them. That's people who also joined later, and that's Michał and Jascha. And the last time that I've been there was a few months in June this year, 13th of June. And Michał organized that we go to Auschwitz to make a commemoration ceremony, and I joined him. And that's actually the exact place where my grandparents gave their soul back to the Creator. Krzysiek Krzysztof was dealing with this topic around 20 years, I think. And that's his last product. It's a book about the Jews of Olkusz. He looked for documents. The last time that I met him was in Jerusalem, now in Yad Vashem, making his research. He's not at all, he's not an historian. It's just an ordinary person. An ordinary person, if I go to this word, could do bad things. An ordinary person can do very good things. And one can decide where one belongs. That's actually the last photo. I found it 2 weeks ago in the city of Suchedniow. They made the first commemoration also. It's a group of people. It's a private initiation, and they made a very. I saw only photos. They made a very touchy commemoration ceremony. because it was on 21st of September. That's the date that 80 years ago, all the Jews of Suchedniow, for about 4,000 people from all the surrounding, were taken to Treblinka. And actually, with that, I'm finishing. No, I will read it by myself. I won't let you read it. I will read it by myself. A week ago, when I prepared this presentation, actually, you can. I can close up the sharing. I will stop sharing so you can see me. Am I there?
We can see you. You
can see me. Okay, great. I can't see you, but now you can make it again of two. I found it a week ago.
I think I will let you read it so we can see you in the big screen, and then I will change the layout again.
Found it a week ago. When I published about the presentation today, I put it in some Facebook groups, and suddenly, the algorithm of Facebook brought something on the screen that I was surprised. It was something that my older brother Dudu wrote in 1917 in Yom HaShoah, in the memorial of the Holocaust Memorial Day in Israel. And it was in Hebrew, but I think it's a very, very good closer for this presentation. And that's what he wrote. In our home, the Holocaust was present every day, and there was no need to a special day to remember it. It's not that there weren't also joys in our home, but the Holocaust was in the background, non-stop, hitting without rest, without mercy, and without pause. I remember one night I woke up to the sound of the soft crying. My mother was sitting at the kitchen table, a cup of tea in her hand, crying weakly. Mom, what's happened? What are you? Why you are crying? I asked her. I'm crying for my father and mother, she said. The same father, my grandfather, who I did not know and I am named after. My young parents, survivors who lost their entire family and arrived in Israel, destitute and completely alone, clung to each other from the fear of abandonment that burned into their flesh along with the serial number they received in the concentration camps, as if one of them could save the other. What they did to the Jewish people in Europe not so long ago is unimaginable. We, the second and third generation, and so on, must take care and ensure that something like that does not happen again, neither to us nor to others, because relatively easily, even cultured people with uncontrollable emotions can be carried away to become a cruel and predatory monster that tramples and destroyed everyone who is different from them. 6 million is not just a number. And I'm telling you, I found it a week ago, and it fits so well to the title that I chose for this presentation. Well, this time I did it in 1.5 hours, so I'm glad.
Thank you, Avi. Thank you so much for telling us the story and for also giving us the chance to get to know your parents a little bit, to see the pictures. I think that was very moving and very good to see that you have these pictures, because many people don't have pictures of their family members. So that's very, very good. And yeah, it was just nice to see them also after the time in the camp, I think, how they came back to life and how they found each other. I think that was very good. Yeah, I'm very touched by your presentation, a little bit speechless. I think we were all very, listening and maybe crying. But it's very important that you told us what happened and how you experienced it, I think, as a kid and then later on as an adult as well. I think I would go, if you're ready or if it's okay for you, I would go to a question from the chat.
Yes, we'll take from my cold coffee. That's, by the way, a Polish cup from Poland.
We have one question from Elisa. She wrote, my grandfather was a Shochet also from Radom. I also had family in Lukow or Lukov. I saw both cities on the train schedule to Treblinka you posted in part 1. I would like to know more about this schedule, please.
About again?
The train schedule to Treblinka. Apparently,
the train
we
schedule.
showed it in part 1.
Yeah, in part 1, it was founded by Raoul Hilberg, one of the most pioneer researchers of the Holocaust at the beginning. And it's very funny that in his book in the Hebrew example for this, it's called Atlas of the Holocaust. In the middle is Suchedniow, even though it was one of the smallest places. It was Suchedniow. This schedule, the Germans they had a very, very strong bureaucracy, and of course it had to function, and they needed a schedule they had a certain number of trains, and they needed to schedule them to work it out. And you can see on this schedule, which I showed, that the train really comes to Treblinka, stay 2 hours, they load out everything. Told you many people were already dead, and when they load out all of all the things that they have, and just turn around and go back. Maybe to the next, most of the time to the next station, or maybe to the original station, which from there it will send the day after to another. Because also Treblinka had a certain capacity which they could kill in a day. And September 42 was one of the most horrible times, because the trains, there were so many people, so many transports, that they had to stay there. They died really in the train from getting. They didn't have to get to the gas to die. They died in the train from not having air. That's she can write me. She can write you, and she can write. I mean, and I will have no problem with anybody if anybody wants contact.
That's what I also wanted to ask. Maybe Leah, you can put in our email address in the chat, and then if you like, you can just contact us, and we will forward the message to you, Avi, and then you can write to each other.
Before you go to the next question, I mean, I had the honor or the privilege to come. You arranged it for me that I come to Bad Arolsen, to the place itself, and I thanks everybody who were helping me, and I got really to see the documents by themselves. But it's animated me to go to this project that you have. With the names.
You mean every name counts?
Every name counts. And I started by myself, and I got into that. And then once a week, I do a page or two. Once I registered, but I don't do it with my registration because it's a process that blocked. We have here, I don't know how many people are registered are now on this. Look at it once, just try it. It doesn't take any time, but that will help. I found documents, a lot of documents, thanks to the Arolsen archive. And you don't know how much there is still there that to be found.
That's
and if
true.
if you are a multiplicator, if you can tell everybody from you, tell it to another one and another one, so maybe the purpose that in 1925 all documents, all these 50 or 70 million documents will be online, will be great.
We will also share the link to Every Name Counts in the chat. So if you haven't done it yet, please have a look. And maybe you can spare some time, maybe every week or every month, to join and help us to digitize the names of Holocaust victims, because it's so important to make them available online all over the world for people to be able to research names. Of course, you can also contact us to visit us in Bad Arolsen, but of course not everyone can travel, and it would be very helpful. So thank you, Avi, for talking about that as well. And if you have any more questions, you can also just write them in the chat. We will have a few more minutes to talk about them. And we have one other question from Federica. She asked, what do you think of Christian anti-Semitism? Because her grandparents were baptized believing Catholics. Maybe if you want to say something about it. If not,
you can say that it's without Christian anti-Semitism, the Holocaust also wouldn't take place, because actually anti-Judaism was the first thing in a religious sense, but I don't put it together. I mean, I don't put anti-Semitism. It doesn't mean immediately the scale of the Holocaust. It's something so. It's not. Unfortunately, it's not unique. It's unique in the way that it took place and in the organized way. But that people kill other people, it's unfortunately not unique. And I think that Christian anti-Semitism, which mostly it's a lack of education, just a lack of education. And if you educate yourself to understand in the depth, there is no reason. I mean, most of my friends are Christian here, or I'm also. I mean, I told you that I've been also in I played in a theater piece, and next to me there was a nun. What is a nun? Yeah. We were arguing very nicely. We are best friends till today. So there is no reason for anti-Semitism. There is no reason for any anti. That's the point.
Yeah.
No real reason.
Well said. There is one more question from Vincenzo, and he's asking how, I mean, I guess especially your parents, how could they live on after what they have experienced in the camps? I mean, you said a little bit about it, that of course it was always there somehow in the family, but how could they start a new life?
I don't think that I can answer. I can't get into them. I can't. I mean, nobody can imagine what they went through. Not only they. It's not only my parents. It's a whole. Nobody can imagine it. And I told in the first presentation, and maybe I had to stress it again. My mother hardly talked. My father told me a lot, and that's their different way to deal with it. And we are three brothers. Each one of us dealt with it differently. As I told, my older brother didn't want this atmosphere. He wanted something else, and he left out. And I, at some point, left also Israel, and my mother was actually along with my younger brother, which is. Was very, very pitiful for him, actually, to carry all of it by itself. And I know that it's happened like that. And I'm very sorry about it. For us, it was difficult. It was very difficult. For them, I think, I would. My mother didn't live. Really, to answer it, she didn't live. She survived.
Yeah.
She just served. My father lived again. My father, somehow he had enough strength to get it over. And you could see my mother was saved by chance. My father was saved because he initiated it to save. He took initiative to be rescued. So he's and I told in the first presentation that my mother probably, anyway, for sure, misused sexually by German soldiers when she was 14. So it's something that started earlier. She was only 14, was taken with 14. My father was somehow more resilient because he was 2 years older, 2.5 years older, and somehow he had this character. Don't ask me. I can't answer how they survived. And as I said, how they lived again. Like my mother really only survived, not more than.
Okay. Thank you. There are no further questions right now. But is there anything else you would like to share before we finish this talk?
Well, I can follow now also the chat. There were any questions from last time that were waited for an answer, or I remember that no, I don't know the Bade house in Wolfratshausen. I don't know it. I've been to Wolfratshausen 20 years ago, and in the same place where it became a normal neighborhood later on, when the DP was closed up, when the DP camp was closed up, and it looks like a normal city. Yeah. But of course, it was very touchy for me to go there. But that's I've been in most concentration camps where my parents were, and also in others. So there are things that are more moving for me. I see that Frederica said it's a memorial site there. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's a good reason to go. I have other good reasons to go there. So I will do that. I will do it again. I remember that there was a question in the last time because somebody was disappointed that I'm not talking. Somebody was second generation, disappointed that I didn't get to talk about second generation. Well,
I tried to tell him that this will be part last time when we talked, I knew that you would talk about it. So there was just a little bit patience, I think, to be needed. But I think hopefully the person joined again today because I think we got an impression on
maybe I just will tell one thing, because especially let's take the next 7 minutes this we still have, because we said about 2 hours maximum. I just will tell you, because I want to go back to this. If there are questions, no problem. When I was in Germany, I had a lot of bad conscience that I'm here. My mother was alive. I didn't have any problem that I'm with a German woman. I mean, that never. I will be ashamed to death if I will think somebody, because his origin, it's not. I'm not capable to be, or not capable to be with me, and still. I was really plagued with bad conscience. I thought every Jew who lives here is a traitor. That was my feeling. That's how I lived. That's why I started to spend time in the library. I didn't have any contact with Jews, not at all. And at some point, I saw that I understood that the process is very, very bad for me. And I started, as I told, to dream about atom bombs and things like that. The more I read, I was more frustrated and more furious. And I went to Berlin to a meeting, a group that's from an organization that calls AMCHA. It's a psychological organization. And there suddenly I met, I don't know, 50, maybe 50 to 100 people. And they were all like me. It was because I felt at the beginning so isolated. I thought I'm crazy. I thought I'm getting crazy. And I thought I was crazy with my plans with bombs, maybe. Or most of them were also grew up here. They were so affected from the fact that they are in Germany and from this stamp of the Holocaust in the past of their parents, and this traumatic experience. I'm traumatized till today. I know how to deal with it. Yeah. But I'm traumatized. The trauma of my parents is in me, no question about it. I deal with it differently than my father. I deal with it different than my mother, and I deal with it, and I'm quite free from that most of the times. But yeah, it's something that is part of me. It's something that became a part of me, and that's why. Again, that's why the title that I choose, it's something that not only Avi have a problem with the Holocaust, with the post-traumatic syndrome. All people who went through have something. And I initiated for 2 years ago, no, a year ago, I initiated a group. We meet every 2 weeks on Zoom. It was one of the benefits of Corona, that suddenly we discovered that when you can do something like that. And I was in a conference, and I saw that many people asking questions about it, about second generation. And I said, okay, try the initiative. I was already in a group of second generation also here, and I initiated it. And it's very, very clear. They lived in Canada and in USA, most of them. We drank from the same resource, and it stays there. We have nothing. We never have a point where we can't talk about something because we all in it. We all in it. Not in the present. It's not that it doesn't pave our way anymore, in the sense that it forces us to something. But we all have certain sensibilities that are very, very much to do. Very, very much to do with this trauma, with this passed on trauma.
Yeah, that's exactly what Vincenzo was asking as well, about the transgenerational trauma that you just talked about. And there's a lot of thank you. I will send the chat later to you so you can read everything again. But for now, many people are thanking you. And we are very happy that you are in Germany and visiting our own archives and talking to us about your story.
So thank you, Isabel, very much. And yes. For what you are doing, I know you didn't start the Bergen-Belsen archive. It's the ITS. It's the American started it, and but for me, you are doing a great, very, very important, very, very, very important work by putting back, because you are the ones who letting that not being forgotten. Because institutions that exist and keep dealing with it, and you have a bus that go around with exhibition and this project of every name counts and so on. Actually, you keep something that shouldn't happen again. And I'm not comparing anything. There is nothing really to compare. But we see now is Ukraine. You know, one state decided to get over the other one, and so much misery comes on all of us.
Yeah.
And we have to be aware of it. We have to be aware of it. And you never know if the next one is you. You just never know.
True. That's what I also wanted to say. At the end of your presentation, you gave us the examples of what every single person can do to be active, to do something against forgetting what happened, or to just do something in the city you live, or for society, or whatever. And that's so important, I think. It doesn't have to be a huge whatever, but for example, taking part in Every Name Counts, or going to a march, like what you showed us, is so important. Like every little thing is very, very important, and hopefully this gave all of us a little bit of inspiration what we can also do. Yeah. There was one more thing I wanted to say, but I forgot about it now. But as I said, I will forward everything to you from the chat. We can all connect, or people who are here now can connect to Avi if you want to talk after this event. And I think can learn a lot from you, and just connect and keep on the conversation. I would say thank you for now. Thank you very, very much for opening up, for sharing the story, and as we already wrote in the chat, we will post this on YouTube again. So this will be there forever, and people can watch it, and it will be there. So that's very important. And thank you everyone for joining us tonight.
Thank you also from my side for joining, from hearing, from listening, for taking part of it. And as I said, I hope that it's have an effect that goes further than more than 2 hours of listening. That it's that's we all try to change the world for better. We know that we will never. It's an never-ending loss story, and that's why I could at some point also that could live by God, but it's another story. Thank you very, very, very much.
Thank you.
For
Bye.
giving me the platform also.
Yes, sure. Thank you.